Hello. Thank you for joining me again. I hope you've pressed the follow button so you can view these episodes in a progressive order. And obviously our remit is to simply offer these universal truths as freely and as widely as possible with no strings attached, because, as we've said, they're not our property, they are part of the universe. Of course, your support in terms of subscribing to this channel is very much appreciated, but it's not our prime motivation. So last time we looked at the bridge of spiritual awareness and how ego affects our motivation to cross. So what is ego? How do we define it? In simple terms, it's the focus on self. Not the higher self, but what we could call the lower self or the physical self, the human vehicle of experiencing life on this planet, which is motivated not by the love of the higher self, but by the desires of the mind. So the stronger the ego, the greater the desire for self, and the less concern for others, including the planet and all life. This new age we're in now, and it is a new age, it has to be an age of self-discovery, moving away from the trends of self-aggrandizement and power towards a spiritual understanding and the true meaning of life. Without such a change in direction, we will surely destroy this living planet and all the life it supports, together with the effect that would have on the entire universe. I'd like to take you back to the autumn of 1988, the very beginning of achieving contact at this level of communication. The previous year had been one of what might be called mediumship training or control, mind control, and moving through levels of semi-trance experience with what felt like several speakers, communicators. I was already keeping copious records, and I see that after one of these shifts, it was a shift in energy, I asked, "You say we, who are you? And where do you come from?" And the voice answered, "We come from the millennia, from the past and from the future. Time is short." When I later queried this statement, we were told, "We are from the future as well as the past. Time is an unreality. What is time? Merely the span between two distances. The life of a butterfly is as one day." Then later that year, which I believe it was a session of just the second communication with the entity later known as Zed, we were presented with a momentous task. And I recall it was delivered with some severity. It was on a subject that is now almost universally accepted, but at that time was understood by just a minority of aware people. This is what it said. The urgent message for the world is on ecology. The dispersal of the ozone layers, the destruction of the rainforests, and the consequences of the so-called greenhouse effect are the greatest dangers the world has ever faced. Within a decade, if it is not stopped, vast areas of the planet will be dry. You are already seeing reduced grain harvests as a consequence of the rise in temperatures. This situation will get worse. The effect will be a shortage of grain on a world basis. The richer countries can survive due to their purchasing power. The third countries will be unable to do this, and the consequences will be disastrous. Urge the world to do something about it. Forces of the universe are concerned at the developments. Heed the warning. Well, who are we? What difference could we make on such a huge problem? Well, for one thing, we could use our combined energy on a regular basis. So that's what we did. The small spiritual development group at my house began building energy to aid a shift in awareness for this purpose. And this was the start of a planet healing group that continued for over 35 years, obviously with some changes in membership, but always keeping to the core until we were finally informed it had achieved its main purpose, which I believe was building a kind of reservoir or power of energy. But of course, efforts to raise humankind's awareness of the crisis we face to save this living planet, they go on across the world in the face of ignorance, poverty, and often violent opposition from those with a vested interest in continuing to exploit this living planet for their own short-term gain. There's more I can share on this crucial and urgent subject, so I'll come back to it later. But meanwhile, I suggest that if you feel overwhelmed by the sheer size and complexity of this problem, then why not take it into your meditations? And remember the karmic lattice and the interactive thought power of every thought. The teachings explain, in order to clear away the mist and fog from your mind, you need to turn inwards. There is no other way. The teachings tell us that in the past, man has looked outside of himself for the answers to the meaning of life. But the majority of organisations in this field, all kinds of organisations, shall I say, merely reflect the aspirations of the seekers. They tend to look at themselves in relationship to the planet and its past. They tend to look at themselves, This has been man's problem in the past millennia, says Zed. He strives continuously to relate his higher self to his body and the planet, when in reality he should be looking within to his higher self, to the universe, to understand the purpose of life. He gave us another of his little sayings or parables. He said, imagine an ant. Its world is its nest and all it can see. You are the same on this planet. You strive to relate only to what you see and not in reality to what exists. So you seek thoughts and feelings of a spiritual nature only within the parameters of your visual experience. Do not relate only to the planet because it's only a tiny fraction of an immense universe. You spend your resources trying to protect your little areas of land on your planet, instead of grouping your scientific knowledge throughout the world in an endeavor to understand the mysticism of the universe. This one day will change. The teachings we offer are the first step in this awareness. For as mankind sees the need to develop unity between all the nations of the world, the boundaries will mean less and less. As always, I hope I've given you a lot to think about. Pieces of the puzzle. But unless you actually process the information, unless you run it through your experience of life, unless you take it into your meditations, it remains merely in the realm of concepts, ideas, without fulfillment. The solutions you seek are within, just waiting for you to open the door. See you next time. Goodbye.